Welcome to the fourth video in a series of videos showcasing the game Order and Opportunity, making of the post-Cold War world order. At the time of recording this, the game is on the P500 pre-order list of the GMT Games. Okay, so and in the previous videos we've looked the turns of the Russians, Chinese and the US, and now finally per the order of play track here on the bottom right corner of the map, it's the EU turn. So we go again, as with all the other powers, into the action phase display and start with the development step, drawing a card. And we get a similar card to one we got during a previous turn, except this one, Kim Dynasty, is placed in Asia if there's a free event slot on the map, and there indeed is one, so we drag the card over there, and this represents an option for players to engage with an event option. They may trigger the Kim Dynasty card by playing a economic action suit card or economic suit card, and then applying the one of the event effects as detailed on the card. We move on to the opportunity step, and here we check whether the EU is able to resolve any opportunities. I don't think so. I don't see any level 2 EU or indeed NATO influence. The US and EU share NATO military influence. The EU itself doesn't have any military influence. The US does have its own military influence. But the advantage with NATO is that you can do it together with your partner if you can agree on what to do, and share the cost. We move on to the commands, and as with the US, we open the EU hand window here on the side, and I draw 3 cards out of the draw deck, this being the EU being a non-player power, so we just simply proceed this way. As with the US, we also first see if 2 cards of a suit have been played, haven't been played, or haven't been drawn. If they had, and if the EU was in position to resolve a world event, then they would do so now. They are actually not even in the position to resolve a world event, which are these half-size cards on the map. So we just simply proceed to play these cards. And so we start with a cultural action card, and I showed in the previous video we look into the play aid, go through the steps to see if anything can be played. I'm looking at the chart and I'm getting to increase the world order contribution, so the EU will simply increase the world order by 1. That's the European Unity card played. And we move to the second card, which is a political action card. For these type of cards, I roll the die to select a random region and then start going through the options. So that's the number 3 rolled on the die, and this is Asia. And all the non-players, they will then look to place or increase existing political influence in a space in which they then, either with that move or later on, can hope to resolve a world event or an opportunity. And this is indeed the case in Central Asia, where the world event here, Taliban, can be resolved with an octagon, that is refers to the political influence piece, which is octagonal in shape. The same applies to the opportunity token over here, can also be placed with resolved with a political influence. Same thing here, although in these 2 spaces, Asia Pacific and South Asia, the EU is not present. Let me zoom in just to see a little bit better. So South Asia and Asia Pacific, EU is not present there, and the spaces are not automatically available for them to be placed to be, as influence placement targets anyway. Okay, and so we proceed then simply to play the political action card here in Asia, increase the EU influence by 1 level, to 2, and that is it. Then the last EU card is the economic action card here, and with this I also roll the die to see which region is selected. 5 is Middle East, which are the 3 spaces over here. EU has, by virtue of the label here, has access to Levant, but there's no world event and there is no opportunity there, so the EU does not find that interesting, and so they pass from having rolled a 5, they simply pass to a region 6. Well, there is no region 6. 6 refers to rather to the own home space, and then some of the tracks there may occasionally be a world event there. There is indeed a world event in the EU itself, Brexit talks, which is a bit of a crisis for the EU. Here you can see the red icons indicate that there are some agenda points to be lost by the EU unless they manage to resolve this. So with the with the economic suit, EU is unable to address the Brexit talks. It's only political influence that addresses that. So we do not select the European Union itself. We look at other spaces. The Ukraine crisis is ongoing here in Eastern Europe, can be addressed with economic influence, as can the opportunity. So this space definitely qualifies as a potential target. And seeing that Europe doesn't have any other potential target spaces, so we indeed go and place an economic influence from the EU player mat here into Eastern Europe there. So now we get to see another small but very consequential mechanic, which is that of reaction. So now we saw that the EU took an economic action in Europe, and we look at the cards here in the so-called event slots for Europe, whether they have react ability cards. Then, well, they indeed do have, and as it says here, for instance, on the Chinese offshoring card, it says when a economic or a political action is played in this region, China resources +1. So they react by gaining 1 resource. So that's often very welcome. China goes from 4 to 5. The Russians get to react as well. And what they do is they can spend 1 resource to place an economic influence into the space. What is the Russian resource situation? So we are at 0. We can go 1 into debt if we want. Let's do this, and we can place 1 economic influence. Placing it here into Eastern Europe. Or basically, placing means increasing in this case. I have already 1 there. And as with the US on the previous turn, we place 1 of the played cards onto the map if it has a reaction ability, and here is this card can be placed. The non-players will seek to place them in the region of the card in which the card was played. This was Asia. Well, Asia is already full. The 2 slots are full. So from 3, Darrow designation region 3, we move to the fourth region, which is here in Africa. And Africa is also full, so we move to 5. Here the problem is 5 is Middle East. EU doesn't have any influence in the Middle East, so they cannot place there. Europe is full. So lastly, we look at Americas. Well, Americas has 2 slots free, so we place the card in one of those slots. Okay, and that's the EU turn then done. You remember from the US turn in the previous video that the plan and the discard and refill steps are ignored by non-players. So I simply go and discard these played cards. The EU is done. We move to the round 3, and the Russians would be up next. We're going to have a look at that in the next video.